Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
This weekend, only at Macy's, it's our lowest prices of spring. How low? Diamond rings, pendants, and earrings, only $399, originally $1,500. Ninja blenders, now $89.99. And $395 men's designer suits, only $99.99. So if you're wondering why you should shop Macy's lowest prices sale, well, the name pretty much says it all. It's our lowest prices for one weekend only. Starts tomorrow at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Tonight on the Ospreys Eerie, we talk through a legend retiring, the result of the season so far, and look ahead to a home quarter final. Stay tuned.
This is the Ospreys Eerie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here once again on a Tuesday evening, joined by Nick, Grant, Josh, as always. And we also have a new presenter joining the pod, hopefully for the foreseeable future. In Jack, pleasure to have you on, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, pretty good after the weekend. Feeling fairly positive. So yeah.
I think we can all relate to you on that one. Can we just get a little bit of background about you and your connection to the Ospreys in general? Because I think it'd be helpful for everyone here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jack. I currently live in the Netherlands, actually. I'm working for the university out here, doing strength and conditioning work. I grew up in Port Talbot, Bryn, to be exact, which is in between Pontrhydyfen and, Carmarthen, I guess, and Maesteg, on the way to Pontrhydyfen up there. And so my dad and my grandfather were big Swansea fans, Swansea All Whites fans. And so naturally, I kind of gravitated towards the Ospreys just because of the region we were in. I played rugby a bit growing up, played for the Green Stars. And Bryn, when they had a team, I'm not sure they still do. I hope they do, but you never know nowadays. And yeah, so I just started watching the Ospreys. It was kind of like, those Friday nights on BBC Two, get home from school and watch the Ospreys was kind of how I got into it.
What was your favourite player growing up? Or
My
favourite
player? Funnily enough, it's there's been a few over the years because I was lucky enough to, in the Galacticos era, watch them, I guess. But I would say growing up, Shane Williams, because I was quite a small boy. And I know it's an obvious one, but it was brilliant. And then a bit more kind of on topic, Dan Biggar going forward from there, I thought was brilliant. So yeah, I would say those two are the highlights for me, I guess. But they're so.
I was going to say, it's better than my choice as a kid, I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Nothing like James. Let's move into the news then. This week has been hectic as always, in the fact that nothing's gone on really with the Ospreys, disappointingly. Elsewhere in the regions, unfortunately, Cardiff have announced they're entering administration today, which is obviously quite bad news for everyone in Welsh rugby. How do we boys think it's going to affect us? Is it the reason why the PRA deal's been taking a delay? Nick, do you know anything?
Well, it's interesting. When I went to the stadium update, there was with Lance Bradley. He did mention some other things, and he was complimentary, in fairness, to the work that Abitini's doing behind the scenes. Obviously, he wasn't at liberty to say some of the things but these, I wouldn't have thought the situation we've arrived in today, in any way, shape, or form, has suddenly happened in the last week. This has been going on, and the Welsh Rugby Unit, I won't hope, have been fully aware of the pending and very difficult situation that the people involved in that regional club face themselves. So he did refer to two clubs, regions, whatever you want to call us, who hadn't signed up to the PPA. We were one of them, but he was quite confident that could be resolved very quickly. It's now obviously evidence the other one was Cardiff, which I sort of got that impression anyway, but didn't realise the reason perhaps why Cardiff weren't able to sign up. So yeah, I guess for us, it's more for me. It's around is that funding now secure, the increased funding, and then there's a knock-on effect around contracts and possibly any additional players we want to bring in. Is there going to be further delays in that? And it's at the end of the day, these are people's livelihoods. And if somebody else comes in from England, Ireland, wherever, they're also having conversations with the player, are they going to nick that player from us? So that's that's very selfish. I understand, because we're talking about people's jobs and livelihoods, but from an Osprey perspective, that's my concern.
I think it's concerning for everyone in Welsh rugby when you see probably the most successful club in the last 2 years in terms of attendances, at least going under like this. It's not exactly promising for anyone involved. It certainly doesn't spell for good times ahead, unfortunately. We'll let the Cardiff Central pod talk more about it, as there'll be more men know and know more hopefully by the time I record. I don't think they're recording tonight, but they'll have something out this week, I hope, for their sake, as far as they know nothing. If you want to listen to anything more about the emerging situation, I suggest you go do so and follow all the other pods on the Wrap network, as we could all use a boost and we all appreciate the interactions and engagement with whatever you have to say. Drop us a like while you're down there. It means a lot. The other big news this week, which is slightly more Ospreys related, is that Dan Biggar has announced his retirement. And I don't think I need to state how much of a legend Dan Biggar is for the club. Over 200 appearances, over 2,000 points. It's complimentary that he's going to be arguably the Ospreys' best 10 of all time. And I want to ask you, gents, what's your favourite Dan Biggar moment?
I'll kick off, as Dan regularly did. My memories of him as a really angry young man, and a lot of the time he'd be angry with himself, he'd be angry with touch judges in terms of where they'd mark, where the ball had gone into touch, where he carried on ranting at them and having a conversation with the linesman for another 5 minutes, which you probably don't see on TV that much. In terms of his competitiveness, I remember Rhys Webb going over and scoring a try a couple of minutes from the end of the game. And he's so chuffed with this fairly spectacular try he scored, made a break and went 20 yards, the usual, and throws the ball into the empty stand behind the goalpost. And Dan Biggar shouted at him because he wanted the ball back to knock the conversion over with a couple of minutes to go. We're still behind. He's going nuts with Rhys Webb. We just got a beautiful try. So, yeah, passion and drive, and that real, different to Arlen Wynn's style, but in terms of that determination and drive to win the game, yeah, there's nothing like Dan for me.
I think it's worth mentioning how much of a experience he was at the club in general at the end of the day. Like, he guided us to a title win, basically single-handedly, in Leinster away in 2012, which will always live on in my memory, personally. It's the first time I probably got to remember it. I don't know if you guys have anything quite as similar, whether it be for Wales, Ospreys, even Northampton at the end of the day.
The obvious one is the kick in the England game, 2015 World Cup. I think that's one we'll all remember. But I've got something slightly different. It wasn't on the field. I was lucky enough to do a short kind of physiotherapy internship with the Ospreys. And it was my first day. And we went out to the pitch, and he took his time out to come over and shake my hand and introduce himself. He said, "Hello, I'm Dan. Nice to meet you. What are you doing here?" That kind of a brief conversation. This must have been 2016, I guess, 2017. He knew I knew who he was. But he had that drive and that aggression. He always came across maybe a little bit on the pitch, a little bit bristly, particularly towards the end with those scenarios of like digging out Rio Dyer and so on. But like in that moment, you should have seen him where he was, quite humble and nice and welcoming, and took some time out of, his training just to come and say hello to the intern, which I think kind of also shows, the character of the man in a way as well. So that's something I'll always remember, because I thought it was a really nice moment and nice thing for him to do. So yeah.
Josh, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think in terms of the game that stands out, it's a bit of a different one, but I'd say Exeter 2015. Weirdly, it's a game I remember. It was coming to the end of the sort of Galacticos era, moving into a different stage of Osprey's life. It was in the Champions Cup. Exeter were doing really well at the time, and it was a team that had Jack Noel, Henry Slade, Francis, all these sort of players, and they would go on to then win the Champions Cup 5 years later. But we didn't play that well that game. But I remember Biggar basically dragged us by the scruff of the neck through the game, and it just showed what sort of competitor he was. No matter what, he was not going to lose that game. He was going to get us through no matter what it took. So that's a game that really stood out to me. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of a story Sean Holly told, where when Dan was young I think he was 19 at the time, and he was quite highly thought of. He played for Wales under 20s. And he sort of was rumoured to go to a couple of English and French clubs at the time. So apparently he went into Sean Holly's office, and he was sat with Mike Cuddy, our owner at the time. And he was like, I just want to make it clear. I know there's lots of rumours in the press about me going to X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to stay, and I want the number 10 jersey. At which point Mike Cuddy was like, all right, how much is it going to cost me then? And he said, right, write down your number on this blank piece of paper, no agent at all. And he gave the piece of paper to Biggar, and Biggar obviously wrote down the number, passed it back to Cuddy. And Cuddy was like, yeah, all right, we can accommodate that. But it was just the confidence of someone at 18, 19 to walk into the owner's office and the coach's office and say, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the number 10. And that was when they had, Hook and all these other world-class players in the Galacticos era. And he's like, no, I want to lead this team. I want to be the number 10. And I think that's just how he played his whole career.
I've got one when he's playing for Wales. I don't remember. I think it was 2015. We were away in Paris, and Dan Lee did this. He never did anything like it ever again. He did this fantastic behind his back pass to Dan, and Dan ran it into the corner, and he was like as if he was running through treacle. It was like he was getting close and close to the line, but he didn't have. I'm sure he wouldn't mind anybody saying, he wasn't the quickest off the mark or quickest top speed, but he just about got there. But it also, just to bear out what people have been saying about his competitiveness. I also remember two occasions when George North was at the receiving end of Dan's unhappiness, and I'd be berating George North. It was at Twickenham in the 2015 World Cup against Australia, and they were down to 13. And Dan had run, and we should have scored, and we didn't. And George North was playing in the centre, and he hadn't played much then at the centre. And rather than Dan had run round into loop, and if George had just pulled it back, Dan Biggar would have walked in. But he gave him a real slagging off. And then similarly, then in the World Cup in 2023, just before half time against Fiji, when we were mucking about with the ball a little bit and near our goal line, and just we just needed to get it off the field, didn't we, and go into half time. So it just summed everything that was good about Dan Biggar. Wholehearted player, very, very talented, fantastic kick of the ball, and a real Osprey legend and Welsh legend as well.
I think he's someone who's going to be remembered in these circles for a long, long time. Apart from anything, the constant comparisons of him and Dan Edwards, I don't think are going to stop anytime soon, especially of his meteoric rise. And it's something that I think is all well and good looking forward to. Thank you, Dan, for your service. It's been fucking awesome watching you.
Yeah.
I think let's move on to some other results over the weekend, some things that are slightly more impactful than Cardiff entering administration.
Obviously, thank you. Full round of fixtures. Start off in League One West, Penclough 26, unfortunately, ND 57. League One West Central, Birchgrove 34, Vardra 31. Very good game that, by the sound of it. Nantafellon 33, Buildwell 17. Skewin 58, Morriston 14, so a good win for Skewin. And West Central then, Aberavon Quins 68, Pencoed 5, Resolving 50, Mystake Celtic 19. National League West Central, Bridgend Sports 12, Brincorch 38. Tonner 7, Neath Athletic 60, big win for them. West 4 Central, Crynant 17, Mystake 7. Pontfrey Devon 14, Gleice 36. Prigos 47, Britain Fiery 28, and then West Central 5, Bonamine Athletic 54, Glencorrug 24, and then the Cwm Derby again, this time at Cwmgrach 32, Cwmtorch 24. Going up to obviously in the standard then, Division West, Championship West, Gowerton 22, Hammerford 20, Ystalyfera 33, Milford Haven 19. Task of Steel went down at home. Grant 19-24 to Trebanos. Lucha 56, Milford Haven 19. That's in League West League 2. And then up to the Premiership, Newbridge 29, Bonamine good away win 33. And then in the Super Rugby Cymru, Bridgend Ravens 14, Cardiff 19. Llandovery 33, Aberavon 28. So that's a good result for them up there in Llandovery. Pontypool 41, Swansea 31. So again, a decent performance from the Whites. And in the Division 2 Cup, Caerphilly 36, Abercrave unfortunately went down 31. St Albans 34 and Hale Crew 13. So yeah, obviously approaching the end of the season for most clubs, but some good performances there amongst our regional clubs in Australia.
It's good performances there. I think there's going to be one more performance to watch out for this week. I think it's tomorrow, being Wednesday, when they were recording us. It's the Swansea Cardiff Varsity, and it's certainly something if you're in the area, it's worth going and watching. The Swansea have been competitive this year in Bucks, and I think a game against Cardiff is something that they'll really appreciate and enjoy. Good day out, if nothing else. All right, let's move on to a big result of the weekend. Scarlets. I think we can all quite say we quite enjoyed that, didn't we?
Do you want to show of hands? Yeah.
I'm also glad to see I'm not the only one who's still a little bit sunburnt after staring into the sun from the East Stand on Sunday afternoon. Bloody hell, it was a glorious result. Great game. Who are your guys as standouts in general? Because that was a fucking great watch. I have a list longer than a lot of things, to be fair.
For me, okay, Rhys Davis, okay, it's only his second game back, and he looks like he's hit the form he was in a couple of years back before he picked up injuries. He's aggressive, carrying the ball. He's very niggly. He looks like a perfect second row at the moment again, and it's great to see him just get back there after such a long break as well. So yeah, he's one of many for me. I thought it was great to see him play like that again.
Yeah, it was interesting. Mark Jones said after the game that while he was out, he spent quite a lot of time with the conditioning staff, just working on his physique, getting even bigger, which I didn't think was possible, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he's looking in great form, and he should hopefully be touring Wales in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he brings a good combination, doesn't he? He's a bit niggly, he's a bit nasty. I don't know if you noticed when they scored their try when Blair Murray went in. Joe Roberts was running a line. I don't think he touched the ball, but Rhys just gave him a little push. The try had already been scored. It's just those little things that get under the skin of the opposition, isn't it? And I think you need that combination. You need those type of players in the team. He was excellent.
He was fucking awesome, quite frankly. I think Adam Beard had a very understated and very good game. Yeah. He seemed like he's added a new level to his game since he's come back almost, or he just becoming a bit of a menace at a breakdown, hitting rucks for fun, just to piss Scarlets off. I was watching the highlights, and before I think Scarlets bugger something up, and we go out just before Jack Walsh's try. Adam Beard hits a ruck for about a minute straight, and the ball was just stuck there because he's hitting it so hard, which is awesome. Also took his try very well at the end of the day, which is something on a carry, which you know what, suck it, anyone doesn't like him.
Yeah, no, I think that Adam Beard as well, like if you watched him at like the lineouts and things like that, I know everyone says about it, but during the game you could see him talking, communicating to everyone around him, just being like generally there and coordinating the whole thing. And I think that him, like he's actually a really important kind of cog in it all. And you could see it in that game, you know, in terms of just his line of defense and work kind of like in reading those things and his communication to the others in the pack and guiding them where they need to be. I think it's good to see him back, absolutely. And it's always nice to see someone in the first minute with a cut over their eye, isn't it? Piling over.
I think it's worth a shout out to Kieran Williams as well, who just sent like was on a mission to smash every single Scarlets player 10 meters behind the game line consistently.
Yeah, he wasn't finding gaps this week, was he? But he was still effective carrying the ball forward, but in defence, oh my god, yeah, it was just hurting watching him tackle people.
The amount of times I think he picked up Ellis Mee and dragged him 5 meters backwards was amazing, to be honest.
Obviously, the back three I thought played really well. In different ways. We've got, and I think I said on the wrap, like to pay tribute to our recruitment team, because I think Sende and Aradi Bashoff have been really good pickups, and certainly within this case of the latter, I do hope we seriously consider offering him a full-time contract, because he's a very consistent player. I thought Jack was fantastic. He's probably, you could argue, McLeod maybe had a better of him last week, but Jack came back in superb form. And Dewi Lake was great as well, wasn't he? He just offers that nasty gain light, and he put in a big performance. But I thought everybody played well. It was one of those games that you didn't really, obviously somebody had to have man of the match. But Ruben Morgan-Williams looked really sharp, and Nickel Snipes. Dan Edwards played well, kicked when he needed to kick as well. I thought it was from 1 to 15. A little bit of a drop off. I thought once one or two subs came on, and it was nice, interesting to hear listening to Mark Jones both on S4C, Espadrec, and with the rest of the press. He wasn't completely happy with the performance, which is good. He's obviously got high expectations and feels that we haven't quite got to where we need to be with regards to an 80-minute performance.
Yeah, I know we've more or less named most of the team there. But I did want to just mention the 2 nines. I thought Ruben Williams, as Nick said, was pretty excellent, especially with a few loose balls coming out the side of the rucks, and I think he dealt with them really well. I think he beat most defenders in the game, which is really impressive for a scrum half in itself. And I think he kept a lot of the Scarlets' line speed quite honest, because if you're a threat around the ruck, it means you can't blitz up as quickly, because obviously it's going to leave gaps for your 9 to go through. So I think he did really well in that respect. And then Lukey Dye, when he came on, he probably admit he didn't have his best game last week. But that's to be expected. He hadn't played in quite a while. But I thought he was excellent on Sunday. I think when he came on, he controlled things really well. He put it in behind the Scarlets a few times, which actually led to tries. So I think for him to bounce back after his probably disappointing performance the week before, I thought he was pretty awesome, and leaves Mark Jones with a massive headache this week, having to pick between Hardy, Ruben Williams, and Luke Dye, because I think all of them deserve to have a place in the matchday squad, to be honest.
There's a question about Ruben's fitness after going off for head knock, didn't come back on. Don't know if he failed for HI or passed it and just got replaced immediately anyway. Because around the 60th minute, he would have come back on anyway.
Yeah, apparently Mark Jones said he passed the head injury assessment because Luke Dye was going quite well, he thought just leave him on. then finish games. So hopefully it should be good to go this week.
I had a favourite moment, and Tipperick as ever was brilliant, wasn't he? But
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed on the try that Jack Walsh scored, which some of the defence on the Scarlets wasn't the best in that one, but he was berating Keelan Giles because he was in the line and it should have just gone through hands, and he threw the long loopy pass out to Jack Walsh, and even though we scored, he was having a right go at Keelan Giles.
Yeah, you run an extra 10 yards. He didn't have to run there, did he? Going back.
Yeah, exactly. At his age.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure he came off pretty much immediately after that for Morgan Morse. Which, you know what? Fair enough. If you're replacing Justin Tipperick with Morgan Morse, that's like Henry Pollock too. To have a small ticket inside line. As I say, I think it's an epic performance. Day out was great as brass band in East Stand, making lots of noise. Crowd was awesome. I think attendance of just over 9,000 in the end, which was a great showing. Everybody, lovely day out. Weather was gorgeous. I think it's hopefully something we can repeat at St. Helens going forward.
Can I just say hello to John and Keith, who are apparently big fans of the Ospreys Erie podcast. They managed to have a word with me. I think they enjoyed it as much as we did. So thank you very much for listening as well, both.
I don't think there's anyone not from Pontcanna who enjoyed that performance, Nick, to be fair. It does, however, lead us on quite nicely into what's coming up this week. Lyon at home. How are we feeling, gents? Confident? Dissuade? Do we think Lyon are going to actually show up for it?
That's a big question, isn't it? What team are they going to field and then the first are pretty good. They got some decent players. I think we're saying Sam Matavesi, Sam Randra, but yeah, like it's been said that they're in a bit of a battle in the league themselves, so they can challenge for playoff places. So it all depends on who they bring down. There's a chance, it makes it quite hard on a 6-day turnaround because you don't know if they're going to bring down the seconds, the thirds, the firsts, but that might work in our favor as well. So we should see. I'm fairly confident. I think they should have enough, but it's always hard to say with the French teams, depending on how they choose to travel and what they choose to put out, I guess.
And how big the pack are going to be. That's going to be a challenge. And our starting front row is great. Our backup front row are getting better by the game and maturing. But I think it's another game where you're thinking, right, Tom Botha needs to last as long as possible again. If you want to avoid starting leaking penalties potentially against a potentially massive pack.
Especially since they got the biggest neck in world rugby in Camille Chat. And that's going to be a challenge in itself to try and hold that up.
Yeah.
I think Mark Jones has managed the front five quite well in regards to minutes the last couple of games. He brought, Gartom didn't look that pleased when I watched it back about coming off, but I think he's been quite clever in that respect. So if it was me and we're talking about picking the team, I'd go with our very best front row, which for me is Gartom, Dewi, and Botha. Starting, and hopefully they've got enough to get into the second half before we have to make any changes.
I think that'll be the hope, but I think it's always very much dependent on can we get front football? Who are we gonna pick? Because I think we've got basically our entire first choice pack available still.
Yeah,
thankfully. And it's whether do we want to change it up to bring more impact off the bench. Instead of a James Fender, do you bring in a James Ratty who's going to carry and be more attritional? Or do you go even, dare I say, a 6-2?
Chest pains. No, don't do that. I don't know. Tipperick can always play anywhere in the backs, can he?
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Tipperick at 12 seems destined to happen at some point this season.
I've seen Tipperick play outside centre, and that was when we travelled to Lyon last time, and we scored 4 tries away from home with a much unfancied second string team. And he probably played the last 20, 25 minutes in the centre and absolutely creamed it outside centre. He was then carried off the pitch, loving, poor man, after a perfectly legal tackle from a flying Tipperick. So you never know. But no, let's make sure. I think it's really important to get the right cover and get the bench right. Like I said, we've got a really, really strong squad, and you've got options on the bench in terms of especially back row and second row. But when you look at what backs you're going to put on the bench, that could be quite crucial.
I was going to say, it felt like a bit of a drop off against Scarlets when the bench came on, especially, which isn't that convincing. I think it's a bit of we were trying to overplay a bit much and then just not necessarily getting caught out, but just getting sort of stuck around the 40-meter mark a lot. And the ball became quite scrappy before we finally got that Kasende try. But it seems to calm things down just a little bit, but it wasn't as encouraging. I still think we need to have a big 12. I don't think Owen Williams has got that same level of physical presence that you'd want. And like Keith, who's obviously just nailing people for fun. Be interested to see if Phil Cocknessinger comes back in. That's just a bit of heft, if nothing else. Had a couple of decent performances. Was obviously left out of the second Scarlets one. Be nice to see him come back in, even if just off a bench.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have Sam Parry pulled out last minute, didn't he? So hopefully he'll be fine for this week. And by all accounts, Kieran Hardy's going to be fit as well. They just gave him an extra few days. So again, personally, I maybe fetching things up slightly, but maybe on the bench. But I don't think I'd make much changes. If everybody comes through training this week and is feeling good to go, I'd pick more or less the same starting 15.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if we gave Tips a break.
Yeah, maybe.
Just let him have a breather. Have a back row of Morgan Morse, Jack Morgan, and Morgan Morris from a go, and just see if we can try and wear out this Lyon side. That's going to be big either way, quite early on. It'd be tire them out like you do a classical French team where you kick the leather off it and make them run.
I worry that we potentially only got 5 more games of Tipperick, so I want to see every minute I can possibly get out of him, to be honest.
If it was me, again, I'd pick him for this one. It's too important a game. Maybe rest him on Judgment Day. Possibly don't even play him in South Africa. But for me, I'd pick this one, and then obviously then his final home game against the Dragons. Those would be games, and if we go, obviously, hopefully we win on Saturday and we go further than this. So, those would be his last few games for the Ospreys, unless of course he can be persuaded to do one more year.
Play coach. Yeah.
I think Mark Jones was under a lot of pressure after the first Scarlets game, especially with his selection and rotating as he did to win this game. And I think he was kind of vindicated with that performance. I thought the boys who came back in looked like they had a lot of energy, and the week off really did them well. Whereas I think the Scarlets boys probably looked like they peaked last week, and they didn't quite match us physically this week. So yeah, credit to Mark Jones, because I was definitely one of the ones who was criticising him for his selection weeks ago.
To be fair, you could see at half time that half of Scarlet's team were gassed completely. I think it was Jack Price and Ryan Elias who were just down for about 2 minutes after a tackle about the end of the first half. It's like, I just sort of feel bad for them not having the depth and strength that we do, which is sad, but I think it's the state of Welsh rugby, annoyingly.
Yeah, they finally broke Gareth Davis as well, which is sad to see. But hopefully he's all right for them in a couple of weeks. He's got the week off now, luckily, so a bit of time to rest.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's been, I think the one last thing to do is maybe touch on attendance, because it's been a bit of a talking factor in the last week after we got a decent, quite good number out on Sunday. I don't see it being anywhere near as good this weekend. Gents, to you?
No. We had a look at the sales this morning, and it looks like sort of a normal URC type crowd at the moment. But, it is early doors. So hopefully we'll sell a few more tickets, because those boys deserve people to turn up, because they're playing fantastic rugby. If the weather's similar, I think the weather's going to be all right then on the Saturday.
I think so until Saturday, yeah.
Could be another cracking afternoon out.
Yeah.
I was going to say, at least we'll have more people at the Swansea.com this week than we'll be at the Park of Scarlets. All right, let's get into the end of this pod then. Score prediction for Lyon, gents. Let's start off with you, Josh. Actually, score prediction is something funny.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that wherever I predict, the opposite will happen. So I'm going to predict Lyon by 50, just because. No, I'm going to go Ospreys by 8. Is my prediction. Can you come back to me with something funny? I'll have a think on that.
All right, Grant.
Usual confident, big score. Ospreys by 1 again. I'll take the win. In terms of something funny, I'd really like to see the entire French row yellow carded. Shouldn't be funny, but I think it would be funny. I can't see that.
Jack?
I'll go Ospreys by 7. I reckon. I'm gonna be confident-ish, I guess. Should have just enough, I reckon, at home to see us over the line. So I'm gonna say Ospreys by 7 points. Why not?
All right, man. And Nick?
I'm going to go Ospreys by 10. Looking at some of the data on, we're averaging 4 tries or more at home. If we get anywhere into the high 20s, they'll score 2 or 3 tries possibly. So yeah, Ospreys by 10. And the funny thing is that Rhys Davis is going to have a crash course in French so he can mouth off to the French players, as he was doing last week against the Scarlets players, just to add a bit of spice.
I think I'm going to go for something similar. I think I'm going Ospreys by 13. Even more confident. I think we'll have too much. I don't think we're going to bring out a particularly strong side at the end of the day. And I do think there's going to be a fight with 3 yellow cards. Proper predator. You're going to see a shopping trolley on the side of the field. Cut to during said fight. The boys looked up for it this week. Hopefully they can stay up for it. Week coming on.
Well, it's a big competition, isn't it? We got a really good chance. We win this game, we might end up going to Connacht maybe for the semi-final, but then back to Cardiff for the final. So we should be targeting this competition now. And as again, I don't see any reason why we couldn't get a result out in Connacht if it is there. So there's everything to play for.
You can even argue there's forever to play it in. That's a joke no one's going to get. That's really sad. I think let's call it there for this week. It's been a pleasure having you gents on. Thank you, Jack, for joining us as well. It's been a pleasure having you guys on. Hopefully nothing too eccentric happens in the next week of Welsh rugby. I mean, just enjoy a game against a French team on Saturday. There's nothing more to worry about. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Have a good night.
That was the Ospreys Hour. Please rate, review and share on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.